of Commons is never actually well behaved. They like to talk about parliamentary diplomacy and parliamentary behavior and the use of parliamentary language, whatever. It's usually quite chaotic there. And it's never more chaotic than when a Liberal is the Speaker of the House. And Greg Fergus is absolutely terrible at keeping a handle on what's going on there. What have I been calling him? Kermit the Speaker? He looks like Kermit the Frog a little bit. Like, imagine he were green. He's got strong Kermit the Frog vibes. But he's lost control of the House of Commons. And the Liberals are really nitpicking on the stupidest of things. For example, a suspected cop shooter was described as a complete a-hole. So this is, can we scroll down a little bit? Thank you. God, this guy looks exactly like the kind of loser who'd shoot a cop. So the assessment of suspected cop shooter Tibor Orgona from the veteran detective is as blunt as a sledgehammer to the face. Let's scroll down. So this guy was out on bail, by the way, and he shot a cop. So he's a complete a-hole, a real F-ed, said the cop, who asked not to be identified. He's just a muppet. Orgona is the alleged triggerman in a Midtown shooting on Wednesday that sent a 29-year-old Toronto plainclothes cop to emergency with a bullet wound to the gut. My lord. Thankfully, the young detective, a 5-year veteran, this guy's been a cop since 24, is expected to recover. So let's keep scrolling because there's some, this guy is a career criminal, as he goes on to be described by Pierre Poilievre in the House of Commons, just a total dirtbag, allegedly. A cursory Google search, so you don't even have to look hard. This is just police reports and mainstream media coverage of this guy's one-man crime spree. Cornucopia of criminal charges from assault to possession of a bogus firearm. But he was out on bail at the time of the shooting. He's charged with attempted murder and a slew of firearms offenses and breaching probation. I'll be surprised if this guy doesn't get bail. So this comes up in the House of Commons because this is Justin Trudeau's catch and release policies in action. So Pierre Poilievre gets up in the House of Commons and talks about this because violent crime is up across the board. What are the Liberals doing? Hassling duck hunters, leaving the border wide open, letting everybody under the sun come in as a foreign student, completely unvetted with no security checks, and then they get here and they claim asylum. Guns are trafficked across the open border, the same one that allows people to come across. And who's the bad guy? I don't know. Joe Farmer from Saskatchewan, apparently. So Pierre Poilievre, and by the way, chiefs of police have said the same thing. We don't have the resources to kick down everybody's door to snatch their guns. They're minding their own business. We need to do something in our big cities, which are run by progressives. So Pierre Poilievre mentions this, and then everything degrades into madness.
I think you have a charter right to get released after 24 offenses while you're already on probation and shoot a police officer in the stomach. I'm more worried about the charter rights of the police officer who's recovering from the gunshot. This is what the police officer said. Almost everyone we arrest is out on bail. No one stays in jail where they belong. The city and the feds just don't care. It just doesn't bother them. It doesn't matter how many die and if a cop gets shot. That's right. What's wrong with you people?
Mr. Speaker, when the men and women in uniform in my city of Toronto or right across the country are harmed in the course of their work, they deserve our absolute respect and solidarity, which we always provide to them. In terms of decisions that are made about bail, these are important considerations. They're considerations where we've made amendments to the bail regime. What happens after amendments are made at the federal parliament is that the ball turns over to the provinces. We need to ask genuine questions about who's making decisions about granting or denying bail. Provincially appointed JPs. About provincial crowns who are making decisions about whether to review bail and what kind of conditions to impose. Those are questions that need to be asked because we need...
Do we have the clip of that Liberal minister, the former health minister? I don't know what portfolio she's in now. She won't be there for very much longer. uh, or being outraged that Pierre Poilievre called this guy a dirtbag. Do we have that clip? There's quite an exchange there. I know. Yeah, I know we clipped it for our social, so I just put Olivia on the spot to find it. Let me just maybe we can talk about while you're looking for that, the Toronto Police Association issued a statement. So this is the police union who said enough is enough. 637 of our officers, 637 of our colleagues, 637 of our friends injured in the line of duty, putting their lives on the line every single day to keep this city safe. And what do we get in return? A broken court system that lets repeat offenders out on bail. Have you tried accusing them of honking the horn? Because I know that that'll get you in jail for like 50 some days. Have you tried giving a sermon to some truckers at the border? This is from the Toronto Police Association. Now, see, they say it also has to do, of course, because this is a union, but this appears to be one of the more better ones. Come on, Sheila. One of the better ones. To make matters worse, after months of negotiations, we've been pushed into binding arbitration to settle our contract. The very people risking their lives to protect the city are being told to wait and hope for a fair deal, while local politicians sit on their hands, failing to step up and do what's right for men and women on the front lines. It's time for those in power to get their priorities straight. You can't talk about public safety while neglecting the very officers who make it possible. No more bail for repeat offenders. No more delays in getting our officers a fair contract. Our members deserve better, and the city deserves better. The time for action is now. You know, and I'm not, usually I'm quite opposed to giving government workers raises, but when you have a crime wave caused by the Liberals in our major cities, I think maybe we'll give the police officers a raise. You know, why not? Like, of all the people who should be getting a raise, it's not MPs, it's these guys. Especially when they're dealing with literal catch and release policies. Okay, I think Olivia found the clip. Thank you very much, Olivia. Go ahead.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I've noticed over the last several months a real decline in the tenor of this House. It is disturbing to me as a member of Parliament to hear other members of Parliament use names and slurs towards constituents of all of ours. These are Canadians that we're talking about. And Mr. Speaker, when we're using names and calling each other names and calling constituents names, I think we can do better, Mr. Speaker. I'm a member of Parliament for Thunder Bay Superior North, and I'm immensely proud of the citizens in my riding, and I would never, ever consider calling any of them a name. For now, thank you.
Do we have the clip of Poilievre calling that guy a dirtbag? Because he called a cop shooter a dirtbag, and she's like, how dare you talk poorly of Canadians? Excuse me? Are you not of the... First of all, this guy is a dirtbag, alleged, if he shot a cop, which evidence is pretty strong that he did. But are you not the party of the racist, homophobic, fringe radical extremists? That's what your leader called Canadians? You know, wondered if we should even have a place in Canadian society for anybody who thought differently about COVID restrictions? You know, should we even allow these people in our society? What are you going to do? Launch them into the surface of the sun? Like, deport them? To what? To where? They're Canadians. They just think differently than the government. The Liberals could not shut their mouths about how much they could not stand otherwise law-abiding Canadians who disagreed with them on COVID. But this woman, who was the former health minister, Patty Hajdu, now Aboriginal Affairs, Indigenous Relations, whatever they call the portfolio now. Whatever she's doing, she's failing the Indigenous people. Try getting them clean drinking water, Patty. But she stands up and she's outraged because somebody said something bad about an alleged cop shooter. They think stop for a second and think about this. The Liberals think more of an alleged cop shooter than they did of you if you thought the lines on the grocery store didn't stop COVID. If you thought that those stupid arrows on the floor of the grocery store didn't stop COVID, you are worse in her mind than the cop shooter. That's the Liberals for you. And that is why they are some 25 points behind the Conservatives. Because when you see stuff like this, you're like, holy hell, they called me names because I thought that I should be able to have Christmas if I wanted to in my private residence without the government getting involved. They thought you were worse than a cop shooter. How dare you call the cop shooter names? You disgusting anti-vaxxer.